Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I'm here today at the bike playground here at Círculo Verde, and I'm just right here at the outdoor trail doing a couple of laps around here with my newly built Tiny 8X frame. It's not a Tiny 8X because it has different components. It is a quick tiny whoop to build, and it took me like a good 30 minutes to build, and it is an 85mm frame. So yeah, in this age of brushless swoops, there is still some merit in building an 85mm brush swoop, which is a little bit bigger than your regular size tiny whoop, which is around 65mm wheelbase. But this was a great little project, and it's very cheap to build, much cheaper than building a brushless tiny whoop. Yeah, so it doesn't have as much power as a brushless swoop, but it still provides a ton of joy to fly around. And even today, it's quite a windy day, but there is a slight breeze, not super windy, but you know there is a breeze today, and it is able to handle it a little bit better than a 65mm tiny whoop, but obviously it's not going to have as much power as a brushless, so it's still going to be buffeted around by the wind. Still, this is a very fun thing to fly here, even outdoors, which is something that a 65mm tiny brushed whoop might have struggled with. But yeah, so anyway, let me show you how to build the one if you want to build one yourself for cheap, and it's a great project to do on an afternoon, or you know, on your weekend, right? So check this out. So first we take the soft mounts that come with the kit and slide them onto the mounting posts of the frame. We will do this for any two adjacent posts for now. I had this old B-Core flight controller lying around, but there are plenty of newer brushed whoop flight controllers available, which I recommend. I recommend you do the binding procedure and BetaFlight setup before proceeding further with this build. We need to slide it onto the grooves of the soft mount we put onto the frame, and then we need to put in the rest of the soft mounts. Note that it can get quite tight, so be careful that these gummies don't fly off. I won't be going over the binding and BetaFlight setup since each flight controller differs slightly, so do check the manual, but do let me know in the comments if you need a more detailed setup of the B-Core or any other flight controller. Once you've got the flight controller in, you would then need to put in the screws. Next up is our motors. You just pass the wires through the motor holders and push in the motors. It's quite a snug fit, so it does take a bit of effort, but it also guarantees that your motors won't fly off in mid-flight. There are some rubber bands that come in the kit as well, so to secure the motor wires, so you just need to put them in like so. And then I recommend twisting the wires together so they are nice and neat. Now, depending on the motors you got, they may or may not come with a connector that plugs into the pin headers on the flight controller. In this case, I just decided to solder on the opposite side of the pin header. Next is to cut the wires short. After laying them out into the grooves under the frame and passing through to the top side, I left about 10 to 15mm of wire, which should give me enough slack. We then need to strip about 0.5 mm from the wire ends. Once you've finished stripping the wires, take your soldering iron and pre-tin all of the motor wires. Now would also be a good time to pre-tin the voltage ground pads for our FPV camera. With your long nose pliers or tweezers, carefully bend the wires close to the motor pads and solder them together very quickly. Now pre-tin the voltage and ground pads for our battery. In hindsight, I should have done this before I mounted the flight controller, but just be careful not to touch your soldering iron to the frame to avoid melting it. Sorry for the camera angle, but hopefully you can see it just fine. We then need to take our pigtail and solder them into the pads we just pre-tinned. Going back to the top side, we now take our FPV camera's ground and voltage leads and solder them to the pads we did earlier. The camera I used here is a Turbo Wing Cyclops, which goes in quite nicely into the canopy. There is a little LED board that also comes with the kit and fits quite snugly into the back of the frame. We also need to pre-tin the wires before we solder them with the FPV camera leads. Make sure you touch the LED leads while soldering and make it quick to avoid melting the solder holding the FPV camera wires to the pads. Once you're done, turn off your soldering iron and get some double-sided mounting tape, which acts as both a mounting solution and an insulation between the boards. All we need to do is push it onto the board a bit towards the back so there's space for the camera, and then test fit the canopy onto the frame, making sure to pass the antenna out the side and that everything fits. Once you're good, we then need to screw the canopy onto the frame. If you haven't already, make sure the flight controller is already bound to your radio and set up before doing this. We are done. All you need to do now is plug in a battery and take it out to fly. So here I am at my apartment, flying out the gate and flying this 85mm Whoop outdoors for the first time. And it is a very great afternoon. It's a very calm and windless afternoon, not even a slight breeze. And the 8520 motors are doing a great job flying this thing. And the total weight without the batteries is around 40 to 42 grams. So that is a lot heavier, around twice the weight of your 65mm Whoop. And that also means that it's going to use up a lot more batteries. Here I'm using the same batteries that I do on my 65mm Whoops, and that's just because I don't have anything else. But you'd want to go for something with a lot more capacity, maybe a 500 mAh battery, so that you can still fly for around 2 minutes. So here I'm flying for about a minute and 15 seconds per battery, so that is a very short flight time. But yeah, again, the 500 mAh battery is going to be a little bit heavier, but it will have a lot more capacity. So you can fly around I estimate around 2 minutes with this thing. And it's really great flyer, probably better suited for the outdoors, but you can still fly it indoors like what I'm doing here. And yeah, so we will have some more flights on a more windier day later on in this video. And that's it for building your own 85mm brushed Whoop. And yeah, it's a great weekend project. It's a great project to do maybe when you get off from the office, if you have these parts lying around, or if you can order the parts. I'm gonna list all of the parts below so you can buy them off of Banggood. And those are affiliate links. It doesn't cost you anything, but it does help me a lot in building this channel. All right. So I hope you enjoy this short video, and I'm going to be flying some more with my B8, my 85mm brushed Whoop. And as always, keep building and keep flying.